locally, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker. This is Times Radio with Hugo Rifkind.
Hello, this is Hugo Rifkind here on Times Radio, wishing you a very good afternoon. It is just coming up for 5 minutes past 12. I'm here until 1 p.m. when Alexis Conran arrives with his troupe of high-kicking backing dancers. Still to come, David Charter on Black Americans turning to Trump, David Chazin on French nostalgia for the film Amélie, G.T. Carber will reveal how he created the publishing sensation Myrtle, and there'll be music recommendations, old and new, from Ed Potton as well. Do keep getting in touch with us. We've had a very busy morning. You can text us on 87222, start your message with the word Times. You can tweet us at Times Radio or using the hashtag Times Radio, or you can email us on studio@times.radio, or you can WhatsApp us on 0333 003 2353. Now, my next guest, Daniel Howell, was one of the original generation of YouTube superstars, posting his first video from his bedroom in 2009 as Dan Is Not On Fire. He went on to amass millions of subscribers together with his friend and longtime collaborator Phil Lester. That led to the duo having their own show on Radio 1 and to Daniel branching out into a career as a stand-up comedian and more recently as a mental health advocate. In 2021, he published a book called You Will Get Through This Night, which lifted the lid on his struggles with his mental health. It was written together with a psychologist and designed as a practical guide to taking control of your mental health for today, tomorrow, and the days after. The book went on to become a Sunday Times bestseller and has just come out in paperback. Daniel Howell, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
What a pleasure to have you on. I think in some regards, you might be the most famous person who's ever been on this show.
And that says everything about the downfall of Western civilization. Thank you. Pleasure.
Or indeed the rise of Times Radio. Who knows? Look,
yes.
Could you have ever imagined when you started as a YouTuber back in 2009 where life would take you, where it would lead you, how hugely it would land?
No, because I am so old, in brackets 32, that I predate an era where anyone could have had a career from social media. When I first started making comedy sketches in my bedroom, there was no plan. I did not think it was going anywhere, and my career is an accident. So here we are now. I didn't ask for this responsibility. I'm very terrified. What
a happy accident to have had. Look, you built a very successful career off the back of being essentially an internet clown at first. And then in 2017, you uploaded a video titled Daniel and Depression. Can you explain what led to you making the decision to do that?
My comedy has always been very self-deprecating. The entire brand of content I posted on YouTube was stories about all the worst things that have happened in my life, recreating sketches of the times I got fired from Focus Do It All for selling an axe to a child. Long story, I had to be there. And over the time, I started asking myself, look, a lot of people are resonating with this real aspect of the comedy and the storytelling that I put into my content, but how real do they want me to get? Because it got to a point where I realized for several years I was struggling quite badly with depression, to the point where it was really affecting my ability to work, to write, to perform. And I thought, is this something that I can open up about or not? And it's hard for us to remember because now we take it for granted. We're also open about our mental health. Oh, look at how we've all changed. In 2017, that was terrifying. I thought if I opened up about having a mental health issue, that people would think that I'm crazy, that I'm making stuff up, that they would just not be able to watch my content anymore because it hits different and it's weird. So it was very much something I felt I had to do to get it out, to put it on the table so that people would understand me. But it was a terrifying moment.
And how did it land, and how did it feel for you when it did land as it did?
I was actually shocked by how positive the reception, because we know what social media is like. The average day on Twitter, you feel like you're in World War III. And yet when I posted this, I was met with not just a lot of people going, wow, this is really interesting, this is really funny, I learned something more about you, but there was so many people that said, I feel the same way as you, and I simply did not know that this was not normal until I heard your story. And that was really what blew the door open and made us realize that so many people live with very common mental health struggles, depression, anxiety, chronic stress, and they simply don't know that you're not supposed to feel like that all the time, which is awful sounding, but I guess great if you can finally have that conversation and start doing something about it.
Do you link your depression and your mental health troubles entirely to life before your YouTube career, or is there something about performance, and particularly performance at the level you were performing with that level of sort of fandom and scrutiny and indeed love that may have contributed to it as well?
There's definitely a bit of both. I think that I had issues with bullying as a child. I was dealing with a lot of internalized homophobia that kind of created a lack of happiness in my life. But there was a lot about my lifestyle that was not contributing to it. And when I started writing this book, we decided to structure it in 3 sections. So there's things that you can do immediately if you're dealing with stress or anxiety to make yourself feel better. There's the long-term things that you can start thinking about, your past, how to reframe your perspective on the world. And the middle section is about improving your lifestyle. And it's when I started honestly reflecting on my lifestyle, being locked down. We all remember that time where we didn't leave the house. We were barely doing exercise. We were trapped indoors with people that we hated. That was already my life for 10 years because I was being this internet creator, just sat in front of a laptop, trapped inside with the curtains drawn all day, every day, did no exercise, eating pizza 3 times a week.
I said it, man. You're a pioneer. I just said it. Yeah. But pioneer for all of us.
Before it was cool.
Before it was cool. Lockdown before it was cool. Did you, in terms of improving your mental health, how much of this did you have to figure out for yourself? Did you have like intensive therapy? Were there some people who were very helpful? How important was the love and support of your viewers and your fans?
I think ultimately I would have never confronted my mental health if I did not have an audience that I felt like on some level were either entitled to get to know me better or that I could achieve something by trying to help them. I think that as much as an audience can put pressure on you and there is an accountability, it also can inspire you and push you out of your comfort zone, which was incredibly necessary. But a lot of these things were, I just felt terrible for 10, 15 years of my life. And I only realized after I'd gone to see a doctor and he said, my friend, I think you might have depression. And then I started going to therapy. And then, even the process of writing this book was a way to force myself to be accountable. Because if I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, why the heck would you buy a book written by a guy? So it was very important for me to, as I was trying to create a practical book that anyone could pick up and think, all right, these are things that I can do right now to make a meaningful, positive change in my life. I had to do that myself. Otherwise, I would simply be a massive hypocrite.
I mean, and the decision to put it out as a book, because you have such a huge audience on other platforms. What was the thinking behind what this needs to be in book form as well, or is it because you can do something slightly different in a book because it's more in depth, it's less kind of sort of laugh a minute, although it is a funny book, of course.
Yeah, I mean, as the time went on, my content on the internet only became longer to the point where I just started making feature-length video essays. It's very self-indulgent, but a book, I think, is a physical object. It's something that you can hold, it's real, it's something that you can refer back to. And this book, because it's filled with so many, actual psychologists improved, this is not stuff that I thought was a good idea, pieces of advice for how you can practically improve your life right now, that it's good to have that in a book with a contents page. And that also books inherently reach a wider audience. And I thought that, I have my own social media following, which is amazing. But if something's sat there in a W.H. Smith or a Waterstone, someone walking through after they've had one of those little breakdowns in an airport that we all have every couple of years, might stumble across it and pick it up. And that's ultimately what a book can achieve, which is amazing. And I have seen so many people, I've had letters sent from HarperCollins to me going, this person has no idea who you are on Twitter, but they've written a letter to us to say that your book has had a profound positive impact on their life. And that's something that could have only been possible in this medium.
And look, why has it taken so long to come out in paperback now? Have you made any sort of alterations or additions to this version?
We added some new material. At the time we wrote it, it was as lockdown started. And I thought, I don't want this to be another one of those quick COVID books that just came out of nowhere and then it's going to be really dated in 2 weeks. Turned out it lasted slightly longer than 2 weeks. But I think now we're also desperate to go, oh, God, that's over. That's in the past. We're going to pretend that never happened. And yes, we should move on and enjoy our new life outside. But I think it's so important for us to not gloss over the effect that an experience like that, which is something that so many of us shared, could have had on our lives. So there was talking about, resilience, how to deal with uncertainty in your life, the impact of global events and sticking glued to the news, and also burnout, because I famously spent 10 years churning out all this content on the internet, and then I had a complete mental breakdown, disappeared and came back. And I think after the pandemic, so many people started to realize they are suffering with burnout in their career that they might have been wallowing in for years and years and years, and they simply didn't realize until something snapped in the middle of lockdown where they go, I hate what I do. I hate where I live. I hate who I live with. And sometimes it can feel uncomfortable to have these breakdowns. But, a breakdown is a breakthrough. If you're at the rock bottom, it's only up from there.
In an earlier YouTube video, you also came out as gay in a YouTube video. Were there similarities for you in terms of both the experience of doing that and why you wanted to do it? That you think, actually, if I have this relationship with the people who are watching me, they should know the whole me, or else I'm somehow being dishonest.
There was an element of inauthenticity because I had shared so many of my opinions, all these stories from my life, and I would go on tour and people would meet me outside at a stage door and they'd go, I just want to say thank you because I connect to what you say so much. You're so honest. And me being deeply in the closet at the time felt like I'm a fraud. How can I look at this audience of people that are saying they like me for authenticity when there's still something huge I have to deal with? And the truth was, I wasn't ready to confront that myself because I've had a childhood. I was dealing with a lot of internalized homophobia. And I think exactly the same as building up the nerve to talk about my mental health, I think it's only because of an audience that expressed this acceptance for me already that made it feel like it would be a welcoming space. And also the idea that there's someone out there like 15-year-old me that could really need to hear that. I honestly don't know if I did not have a career as an entertainer, if I would have ever confronted that. I could be a 42-year-old depressed corporate lawyer living in Winnish right now.
Living the dream. Look, before I let you go, and we're very nearly out of time, I'm fascinated by the precise sort of level of fame you have, because out in the world, there must be some people who, when seeing you, it's like seeing Elvis or the Queen, and also older people who see you where they've literally no idea who you are at all. And that must just lead to some very strange situations.
Definitely, yeah. A lot of people say, I'm not aware of you. And I'm like, protect your sanity. Don't go there. Don't open Instagram once. Stay safe. But it is incredible. And things like releasing a book, my experience on Radio 1, it is interesting sometimes when you cross that threshold and someone goes, I know you very specifically from your years at Radio 1, that presenting you did at the Brits and that book that you're on. And I've never been on Twitter. And to be honest, it might be a healthier way to live.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniel Howell. Great pleasure to speak to you.
Thanks for having me.
The paperback of You Will Get Through This Night is out now. To order a copy, you can go to timesbookshop.co.uk, where there is a special discount available for Times Plus members as well. And if you've been affected by some of the issues Daniel and I spoke about and need someone to talk to, then the Samaritans are available day or night, 365 days a year. You can call them for free on 116123. You can email them at joe@samaritans.org, or you can visit www.samaritans.org to find your nearest branch. Do get in touch with us as well today. We've